guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kat, and today I'm going to be doing my Reading Rush wrap-up. So first off, I just want to show you guys this adorable little pin. Yeah, it's so cute. My husband's aunt gave it to him, and I just kind of stole it from him. So I just wanted to give a shout out to that adorable pin. I'm really happy to tell you that I did kind of complete the readathon. So I will explain why I had an issue with one of the challenges. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get right on into it. So as always, this is from my kind of least favorite to most favorite. And I think some of these are pretty surprising, and some books that I thought would be like at the top of the list for sure are kind of just in the middle, and some that I thought would be like my favorite of all time I was not that into. So kind of surprising this week. So the first one I want to talk about is The Sea Beast Takes a Lover by Michael Andreasen. So this one I was reading for the main character is not a human after I could not get the Kindle of Daring the Devil. I guess my Kindle has realized I'm no longer in America, and it realizes that I'm in Australia, and that book is not currently sold for Australian Kindle, so conundrum. So instead I switched to The Sea Beast Takes a Lover, which has a chapter which is about a sea beast who is essentially mating with the pirate ship and slowly sinking it. Interesting, right? So I read the first 3 chapters, and the 3rd chapter is that chapter. And then I just didn't really care anymore. So I didn't really want to continue on. So this is a DNF. But I don't have any like bad feelings toward this book at all. It's kind of just like meh, and I couldn't be bothered to finish it. So if you count a short story as a completion of the chapter, then yes, I did read a book with a non-human main character. However, because I'm a stickler for the rules, I tried to read a book which had mermaids in it. So I tried to read The Gloaming by Kirsty Logan, but guess what? There's no mermaids in this book. So I got about, how far? Yeah, I got about 40 pages in, and there were no mermaids yet. So then I went on Goodreads and I was like, are there mermaids here? There are no mermaids. So despite it saying mermaids, it's more like the lore of them and also like the mysticism and kind of lyricism of mermaids. I don't think there's actual mermaids in this book. Tell me if I'm wrong down below. But the reason that I DNF'd this and didn't keep reading it, beside the no mermaids part, was because I was not really loving the writing style, and I kept getting confused about which characters were which and who was who. So I really wasn't like loving it that much, but I didn't, yeah, so I guess I'm just spoiled right now because a bunch of books that I have requested recently came in from the library. The Nickel Boys and My Name is Monster by Colton Whitehead and Katie Hale. So I'm like, rather than trying to work my way through a book that I'm not even loving that much, I really want to get to those. So I'm just going to give this back to the library, and I can always pick it up again later. Let me know if I should down below, because I've heard great things about this, so I was a bit surprised when I wasn't really getting into it. Okay, so the next challenge was to read a book in the same spot the whole time, and for that I picked up Steampunk, the Art of Victorian Futurism, which hilariously I did not read in one spot the whole time. I did read it, but I switched from the couch to the floor, to the couch to the floor, to the couch to the floor. So I did not use this book for that challenge. I did complete that challenge, but this book I just read just because I liked it. So the beginning of it, the first maybe, 50 pages talks about the history of steampunk and mostly about the major works of literature and the major scientific discoveries that led to steampunk. And a few of them I didn't even know, which is like, steampunk was really popular before the World Wars, and during the World Wars it fell out of favor because scientific discovery was like leaps and bounds beyond steampunk and like the steam engine, so it seemed very like, well, why would we bother with that? However, after the Second World War, it became in favor again as kind of like a nostalgic thing, and also the green movement of recycling and reusing old materials to make new things, new clothes, new art, new inventions, has had a major resurgence. So that was pretty interesting. So this just goes through, I think it's the top 30 steampunk artists in the world right now. So there's artists that create stuff like this, which is just pure art, stuff that just looks cool and also has a function. So like these are like wall clocks that are made to look like, so I want to say like steampunkian. I don't think that's a thing, but should be a thing. I guess like what I would say is that it's just really cool, right? So like rings, these are rings which are made with real taxidermy eyes and then like steampunk hardware, which like right on. Like rock on, that's cool. Yeah, so this fulfilled no challenges for the reading rush, but yeah, I read it during the reading rush and I failed at trying to remain in one place, but that's fine. Oh, so I give this one 3 stars. Okay, now we're moving into the 4-star realm. So I read Ghostwall by Sarah Moss, which I gave 4 stars. This was for the challenge of reading a book that I meant to read last year. And we are following a girl who is with her family and they are taking part in an archaeological experiment where they are trying to live as they used to live in the Iron Age, where the bog people kind of eked out a living around the bogs of northern England. And her father is a bus driver normally, but for this experiment he has been doing a lot of research and he's really into the experiment. And things kind of go downhill from there and get pretty dark. So I give this 4 stars because I wanted it to get darker. Like we stopped at gray and I wanted like it to go darker. So yeah, very interesting, and it's a very short read as well. So if that sounds at all intriguing to you, go for it. I also really appreciated Sarah Moss's like very tongue-in-cheek characterization of men and definitely like fragile male egos, like masculinity is so fragile. This book made me laugh because it was so evident that like the author was taking the piss and like making fun of them. So yeah, it was very interesting. Okay, and then this book, Autobiography by Christina Lauren, gets a 4-star as well. This completed the purple on the cover challenge, and this was actually the one that I read in one sitting. You wouldn't think it because it's such a huge book, but I read this pretty much in one shot. I could not stop reading this book. So we are following a main character who was out as bisexual in their own town, but when their family moves to a very religious, mostly Mormon town, they decide to go back into the closet to avoid like isolation and ostracization until they take a class in high school, their senior year, and kind of the TA or like the helper is someone who graduated the year before, and they kind of fall for them. And it's very forbidden because it deals with like being gay and being Mormon, and also like some of the parts in this book were just so painful to read. The reason it gets 4 stars though is because I really would have loved to see a dual perspective. This book was interesting in that we see from the one character's perspective 90% of the way, and then within the last maybe 50 pages we get the second character's perspective, and I thought it added a lot to the book, and I wish that had been throughout the entire book. So next up is another 4-star read, which is Frankissstein by Jeanette Winterson. This is one of my most highly anticipated This is one of my most highly anticipated books of the year, and it is quite interesting. So we are following kind of 3 or 4 separate timelines. The major 2 timelines, one is Mary Shelley as she is with her husband, Percy Shelley, and then Polidori, and then Lord Byron, and her stepsister, Claire. And they're all kind of at the Lakes region, and she gets the idea to write a ghost story, and that becomes Frankissstein. And then Polidori writes the vampire. And we're flipping back and forth between her life, Mary Shelley's life, and what she's dealing with Shelley, and also losing her children, and also writing the novel. And then the other major timeline is slightly in the future, where a transgender doctor named Rai has fallen in love with a leading AI scientist who is trying to make the next jump in AI, and his name is Victor Stein. And this book, I think, like, was never going to be a 5 for me because I'm never a huge fan of like 4 or 5 different narratives unless they're done like extremely well, and I think that this book could have been tightened like a little bit more in that regard. So it was never going to be a 5, but the reason it's a 4, not a 4.5, is because I think the ending of the AI timeline kind of fell apart at the end, and I was like, what is that ending? Yeah, so I'm excited to hear what other people thought of it because this has just been longlisted for the Booker Prize for 2019. Yeah, so I'm very intrigued to see what other people think of this book, but it's a solid 4, like it's very, very good. So the challenge that I actually used this for was reading a book and watching a movie. So I finished this yesterday and then we watched Mary Shelley, and I also happened to make a Frankissstein concoction, which is actually just like vanilla soy milk, and then I made my husband like vanilla chai cinnamon, and I made myself like vanilla mint, and then I put green food dye because I was, you know, Frankissstein. Yeah, it was overall a great experience reading this, watching the movie, having the Frankissstein chais. Yeah, it was great overall, so that was nice. Okay. And then I read Baby Teeth by Zoje Stage. This one I gave like 4.5 stars. If you liked We Need to Talk About Kevin, I think that this would be up your alley completely. I see the connection like immediately. We are following a family where we're seeing it from the mother's perspective, and she has always felt a connection with her daughter that is different than the daughter's connection with the father. And when she and the daughter are alone, the daughter turns into someone else completely. And it is very creepy. And the end was like so good. So it's kind of interesting because this novel takes place within the same year, I think. Whereas We Need to Talk About Kevin takes the span of like maybe, 20 years? A 20-year span or 17-year span. So they're very different, and also like around the midpoint they start to take very different trajectories, but it has the same tone, if that makes sense. Yeah, so I really enjoyed this. I can't get it out of my head. I thought that it was not going to be as impactful as it was, but I'm still thinking about some of the things, and I read this so quickly. It sucked me in right away. And this was to read the debut novel from an author. So this was their first book, and it was really good. It was really dark. Okay, so now we are to the last book, which was to read a book with 5 or more words in the title. So I read Darius the Great is Not Okay. This book gets 4.5 stars. It was so good. It made me sob like a child. 2 books this year have made me cry, and this one probably made me cry the hardest. So we are following Darius, who doesn't really fit into his family. He's just feeling kind of like a chubby loser who takes depression medication and doesn't fit in at school. He's kind of bullied. He really likes tea. His family is from Iran, but he feels like he doesn't really fit in. And then his parents find out that his grandfather is really sick, so they're gonna go and visit in Iran for quite a while, and Darius doesn't know what to expect. And when he shows up, he learns a lot about the culture and the food, and he makes some friends, and oh my god, this book just like ripped my heart out. It was so heartbreaking and lovely, and I hope that there's a sequel, like fingers crossed. And then also like there are hints that Darius is struggling with his sexuality, but nothing is ever said outright. I am praying, like I hope that there is a sequel and that Darius goes back to Iran and explore some other things that were happening. Oh, I hope so much. This book made me want to try food, Iranian food, like so bad that I wrote my friend Naz, and my husband and I found an Iranian restaurant in downtown Melbourne which does vegan food, so we're gonna go to that place eventually. I might vlog that. Let me know if you would like to see the vlog of the Iranian food and me also talking more about this book and the food in this book, because it was just honestly amazing. If this sounds anything like you would like, definitely check it out. It was so good. Yeah, it was so good. Definitely the best book that I read in a while, and broke my heart into a million pieces. Yeah, so that finishes up my reading rush wrap up. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up or hit the subscribe button. That would be awesome. I hope that you had a great reading rush and that you read a lot of stuff that you like. If you have any comments about the books that I read or recommendations that are similar, let me know down below. That would be awesome. I hope you are having an amazing day, and I will chat to you later.